Hey everybody, Scott Stevens here with another look at some weather across the states. In Scott's weather, we're fall. Outside of some rains in New England and the fire conditions, which appear to be getting a little more intense out west, and that's simply because we haven't had any rain. We had our rain snow event on 8, 9, 10 September, and where are we now? 30 September, so 20 days or 3 weeks since we've had that snow widespread through the west. Oregon, Washington, and even far northern California. And some of that made it into the central mountains of Idaho. But outside of that, the west continues on the dry side. As you can see, the sunshine's streaming in here, and it's going to be here for a little while yet until we change our daylight savings time, which will happen a month from tomorrow. This year, November 1, that first Monday of the year, or is it Sunday, becomes the earliest possible date for daylight savings time. I think it's here. Let me pull up my calendar just because I'm curious. And daylight savings time, it is the first Monday in November, I believe, or Sunday in November. So there we are. On November 1, we go to DST. And that's a month from now. And then I'll deal with the sun that I got to light everything naturally or unnaturally. All right, let's start with the fires and begin there. What we're seeing is that we're still dealing with 70 large fires. It has burned nearly 4 million acres, and that's across 11 states. 2 new large fires were reported yesterday, one in South Dakota and one in Nebraska. Firefighters in California are prepping for very hot and windy conditions today, dry as well, combined with, again, those breezy afternoon conditions. So we're dealing with Marines. We're dealing with crews from both Canada and from Mexico. We've got 7 fire suppression crews, 18 fire engineers, and 54 overhead personnel from Canada supporting the fire suppression efforts in Oregon. And again, fire crews and overhead personnel from Mexico supporting suppression efforts in Southern California. And then the ridge continues to build out west. We'll look at that graphically here in just a little bit. The number of large fires and requiring emergency response, that is in at 2 new ones. We still have 70 fires going, and from these active fires, just shy of 4 million acres, and we had 4 fires contained. So that's the good news. On the year's total, best new report is 7.524, nearly 529 million acres burned. And that's all because of the drought and the lightning going on. And then, of course, there's some human influences that have been going on through the west as well. Now, the other dry place is New England. And today, and even yesterday, they woke up or went to bed with thunder showers, very warm overnight lows in the bulk of eastern New England, where we're in that deep southerly flow, humid as all get out, and that just allowed for a very, very nice rain. Pop over here ahead of this and just kind of look at some of these totals. Albany, in around the Capital District, inch and a quarter, maybe an inch and a half as we get on down to Binghamton. And so it's really been kind of a very good 2 days for rainfall. Connecticut with every single one of their districts reporting topsoil conditions for pasture at or less than short to very short water conditions. So this just is ultimately just a wetting of the top this much of the soil, maybe this much if you got a 2.5 inch total, but elsewhere there are still some sub 1 inch totals across Rhode Island, which is in an extreme drought at this point. So this is just a beginning rainfall, and the heaviest of it was this morning in the first part of the day. We've seen some rather blustery conditions roll on through there, but this is the best rain that New England has seen in quite some time. As we look a little farther out, the next 16 days, the west is dry with very little moisture anticipated for California across the entirety of the Four Corners region, even in the high plains from, say, just west of Winnipeg all the way down to the Big Bend area of Texas, little to nothing. This takes us all the way through the 12th of October. So nearly 2 weeks' time. I've got another model coming in. Let's see if we can grab this latest run, see if it brings us any different data. Maybe a little bit of the Pacific Northwest, maybe some for the Colorado Rockies, but I can guarantee you, this is in the farther outer reaches of the panel. As we see the forecast are 354 hours out, which is way beyond 10 days. So there's just not a lot coming in the immediate future. And more immediately, what we'll be contending with is the heat in California. from 107 Imperial, LAX at 90, Laguna Beach at 101. It's San Diego, 94 degrees, Yakima at 85 up into Washington State. And that heat kind of hangs in there through tomorrow with also some warm overnight lows. So that heat just going on. Some cool lows or some cool highs today, those deep in the southeast with that cool front that is ushering in the rain, those light northerly breezes, and of course the cloud cover shielding us from what is nearly October sunshine. All right, weather stories: 3 dead, nearly 100,000 evacuated as 2 massive wildfires explode in Northern California, and then flash floods in Istanbul, Turkey, and more flooding issues as 100,000 stranded in Bangladesh as they're dealing with their heaviest rain in 60 years. Highest temperatures or extremes across the country yesterday: 110, 17 miles east of Browley, California, and then Grand Lake, Colorado, once again at 14 degrees just outside of that location. Now, we do have an area of disturbed weather beginning to show up south of Jamaica, with just kind of an open way, but as we're looking towards the end of the week, we'll see at least a 60% chance for development inside the next 5 days. So that could be the good news of it. And we'll look at some of the longer range models, which kind of wander tropical storm down in here. Not even so much a tropical storm, but just a straight up hurricane. So that may be something that we're absolutely looking at. Water vapor imagery. Clouds are obvious, but what we're seeing is just the huge amount of dry air across the U.S. through northern Mexico. That summer monsoon season where we have that nice easterly breeze, driving moisture into Mexico, that is gone. That is completely over. It's just done. So no big surprises there with the cool air, the cool Canadian cyclone just kind of circulating there, keeping temperatures downright chilly. And outside of this primary influence, the thing that we can see showing up the most is the smoke in the lee of the Colorado Rockies heading out over the plains, and then more widespread smoke just from those incredibly smoke producing or productive fires through California. A couple of zooms in here. We'll see the ones blowing up west of Laramie, Wyoming, and then the Grand Lake, or I believe that's the Cameron Peak fire west of there, and then another one west of Denver, and then just that smoke that's been lingering in the air. Another one, I believe this is in the Uintas, beginning to show up, and it looks like there's more to just that one. I'm going to try to zoom in here, see if we can see a couple of different centers. And of course, I do that, and I lose the functionality of the animating. But we can see it looks like a couple of hot centers there. It looks like at least 3 different individual point sources for the fire. Look at one more area. Come out to California and come on in here and look at these that have been going on, and just the smoke trapped in these coastal ranges. So the whole Central Valley dealing with poor air quality. Some of the fires south of Santa Cruz look like they've been extinguished, but still nationwide, as we just saw, we've got at least some fires ongoing. Morning lows crisp to say the least, with lots of 30s and 40s across the west, and a few kind of warm spots in the southwest at 80 degrees to begin the day. And as we look into New England, as we talked about, you got the front right in through here, right along the Champlain Valley. Ahead of it, 70s. And this was at 8 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to refresh this, and I can probably bet you that these numbers will be cooler in the wake of the front, and indeed they are. They're back in the 60s, so kind of a pleasant, cool night ahead, certainly on the crisp side, and the cool air pushing all the way through Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. Afternoon temperatures are comfortable. They're almost summer-like, but with the very dry dew points, 32 degrees as we get up to Claremore, Tulsa at 46 on the dew point, and lower 50s. So as this next surge of drier air that's in Kansas with dew points in the 20s, even lower 20s and teens as we get up into Nebraska, as that air continues to drop south, undoubtedly we'll likely see some of the higher terrain see a bit of frost. If not, it's just going to be a very comfortable fall evening. Showers and maybe still a few isolated thunder showers in the Niagara frontier through New England, but still this deep low circulating across eastern Canada and ushering in and bringing in these showers. A few isolated thunder showers that try to get going across Buffalo and again through the Niagara frontier. The Finger Lakes likely to see those showers inside of the next 2 hours. And the big news is the potential pattern change. And this is what I keep waiting. Every model run, every 6 hours, let's look at the extended and see if we can break down this ridge that arcs all the way across Alaska. It's just like it's completely folded over with this low churning underneath here, and this high is just kind of blocked it from moving on through. So as I animate this and where the cursor is, this is how many hours out of the future the model looks. And we can see it kind of beginning to break down. Still some showers. I mean, the ridge is in place, but it's much, much flatter. And that alone allows for some moisture to be drawn in. First wave kind of hammers at it. This is 8th and 9th of October, pushes through southern Canada. And then the whole jet stream complex begins to get suppressed to the south. And with that, allowing some cooler air, greater humidities, and the potential for some moisture to be brought up from this little disturbance to Southern California, and then potentially interacting with this more powerful jet stream. Precip wise, let's just roll. Well, no, let's go to the newest one. Let's see, because honestly, I'd hope that this snow up in Canada just kind of stays up there. We don't need all that down here just yet. We've got a lot of farmers, and because they're trying to grow corn in Michigan, my goodness, that's not going to last too many more years. Corn in Michigan, corn in Minnesota, in Wisconsin. These crops are maybe halfway to maturity. I mean, we're denting, but we're not mature just yet. And with the sharply cooler temperatures, that whole crop development is going to be put on pause for several days, if not for until about this time next week, when we can begin to get a temporary surge of warmer weather in. But on the whole, as we look farther out, the northeastern states have got a cool week ahead and then a return to moderation. And then finally some rain showing up again every bit of 2 weeks down the future on the West Coast. So if we can hang in there, endure the fires, help those firefighters out, and get through this, then we'll probably be doing okay. That's really the task of where we are right now, is just holding on, get through the 2 weeks, and then we'll get Mother Nature to help out. Obviously, there'll be some winds and some heat ahead of that, but ultimately, it'll be about waiting till we can get Mother Nature. And the fires are just so widespread, the acreage is just so intense, and when you're short labor, all you can do is hit the hot spots and try not to get it spread and get way out ahead of it and build fire lines and hope that that's enough. All right, got to look at another perspective coming up at the top of the hour, coming up at 6 o'clock Mountain. I talked about Q on Monday, but I want to kind of evolve that. Is that the only source of truthful information? Can we trust the media? Can we trust them with being a source of truthful information? Or is there another agenda? Have they been co-opted by the agencies, the three-letter agencies? I know there's been congressional hearings about this stuff 40 plus years ago about the agency's influence in media. And has that changed at all? Or are we still under the thumb of that apparatus? So I would love to have a discussion with you and have some feedback in the chat box. And that'll be coming up in another perspective at the top of the hour. Until then, keep looking up.